Well, my title is Does Paper Pulp Application Affect the Optimum Nitrogen Rate for a Sugar Beet Crop? My aims from that really is to determine whether the effect of application of paper pulp is having an effect on the sugar beet in terms of its nitrogen and how it's located in the sugar beet yields basically. And the main things I'm planning on measuring is the leaf size at maximum canopy extension to see if this end lockup has affected canopy size. And then again in pre-leaching in September I've been looking at SMN levels in the soils, and going through to harvest time I've been determining what nitrogen content there is in the roots and in the tops. And I'm hoping really that the research is going to provide farmers, sort of giving them an opportunity to affect and sort of basically modify their nitrogen rates if they are putting paper pulp on, so they can still capture optimum yields really. Yeah. Well, I've got an experiment in Watlington in Norfolk. It's 2x2 factorial. I'm doing two nitrogen rates, 100 and 150, and I'm doing two paper pulp rates, 0 and 50. And it's replicated 4 times. It was harvested yesterday. So I've basically got all my results in now, and fully randomised block design trial. So yeah, hopefully it should be all right.
Basically, urine in practice, in veterinary practice, is a really useful tool for sort of finding out what could be wrong with an animal, as opposed to doing a blood sample that can be quite invasive and a bit stressful and things. So once you've got the urine, you've got a set amount of time, which is not yet known, as to before different components in the urine start to change. So things like bacteria will use up glucose, so if an animal was diabetic you might not be able to pick it up if you'd left the sample on the side before testing it for a while. So basically what I'm going to do is collect urine samples in the practice from animals in hopefully a non-invasive way, so if they're already anaesthetised I can express their bladders to get the urine and things, and it's not causing them any harm. And then from then I'll be taking tests every sort of half an hour, and seeing the changes in the urine and how it's affected if a sample is in the fridge or left on the shelf, so that when veterinary nurses come to do it in practice they then have sort of a good guideline of what things change and how it can affect their results, because at the moment that data isn't available to them.
We're looking at a crop that I planted while I was on placement with Dow AgriSciences UK, and we looked at using a new product that we had in wheat trials for the control of Septoria triticide, and it showed a lot of promise in that field as a fungicide. So we looked to see if there was any other markets it could be targeted towards for having the effect. So we went for oilseed rape, and we've got 28 plots, and we had different rates, so 50 grams and 5 grams and 150 grams, split timings, a standard product which is Proline, and then basically took assessments throughout the year and at the end of pre-harvest to determine how effective the product had been. Unfortunately, it hasn't been effective whatsoever, so it's a bit of a shame, but it has been an interesting time that we've had with them and been a nice project to do while I'm on my placement with them.
I'm doing my honours research project on dormancy in blackgrass. Blackgrass is a big problem at home in Huntingdon, and I came up with an idea to break dormancy in blackgrass, very similar to stubble burning did back in the good old days. And so my idea is to apply substances to blackgrass to break dormancy, to try and create a flush of weeds so they can be sprayed off using a non-selective herbicide. Growers with the blackgrass problem should benefit as they potentially wouldn't have to spend £150 a hectare on herbicides in wheat.
So my dissertation is on toilet and behaviour in canines and hospital-aged canines. This specific study is to examine whether dogs are more willing to defecate on or off lead, so I'm just going to compare the two. It's more for the sort of veterinary side of things, because a lot of practices don't really provide specific toileting areas. It's usually like a trip around the car park or whatever they have available. I recently did a study, I got a scholarship from U4, which was investigating whether canines prefer to urinate on astroturf rather than concrete. So this is kind of a follow-on experiment, because there was no significant effect on the astroturf with the willingness to urinate or latency to urinate or the number of trips that it took the dogs to go to the pen. That's another thing. They're the kind of things that we'll be investigating in this one as well. There was no significant effect on that, but a previous research by Tier and Buckley found that females did prefer astroturf, but the two studies that were carried out previously, theirs were on lead and mine were off lead, and I found that more dogs urinated within my experiment compared to theirs. So this is kind of a follow-on from there.
Basically, all I'm looking at is the competition between AD and the UK beef industry for byproducts and feedstocks such as maize silage or Trafford Gold, where they were previously offered, a cheap alternative to beef producers, to cereals. But as an AD plant works in exactly the same way as a cow, you can feed them exactly the same products. And products such as maize silage produce a lot of energy in comparison to food waste or slurry or something like that. And also, much like a cow, you wouldn't feed a cow a different diet every day, and the same principle applies to an AD plant. So you want a good, even feed, which is what something like that offers. And obviously, when the feed-in tariffs and what have you give quite an attractive return, they can afford to pay over the odds for these things. So it's created a bit of a problem in that feedstocks that were traditionally quite cheap and helped beef producers produce cheap meat or economical meat, that is now quite out of the picture. Well, not out of the picture as such, but it's changed the ballpark a bit really. What we're going to do is basically have some semi-structured interviews with relevant industry people, so beef producers who use byproducts, people who trade feeds, so someone from a company like KW or something like that, and possibly another aspect we were thinking of looking at is someone in the retail industry, for a supermarket or something like that, and see if consumers are actually fussed as to what the cattle are fed on, if that actually makes a difference, because that could be interesting really, I think.